Hello, loves. Hello, hello. Hills here from the Blue Flame. How are we all doing? Welcome to May. Welcome to Pluto retrograde. In the current that we're navigating right now, we are moving into the inward journey. We are introspecting. The month of May is a powerful rebirthing month. Generally, it's spring flowers in the Northern Hemisphere, though this year, the month of May, feels a little bit more coherent to the experience of the Southern Hemisphere, with Pluto shifting retrograde on the 6th of May, shortly after that Scorpio full moon on May Day. In square to the messenger Mercury in Taurus, and simultaneous to Medusa, the asteroid named for entering the zero field of the astrological wheel. Let's bring this in a little bit tighter, shall we? On the 6th of May, at 5 degrees of Aquarius, Pluto stationed retrograde. It will be moving inwards for the next few months, beginning the retrograde journey, releasing that forward momentum that began at the end of March, beginning of May, when Mercury stationed direct and all the planets in our solar system were moving direct. Mercury, at the moment of this stationing retrograde by Pluto, was exactly square, working in that angle of seeing things from different perspectives, opening up wider visions. Sometimes squares are considered tense because it does ask you to move against the grain. It invites you to see around corners, to experience things in ways that aren't quite as natural to you. Now, interestingly, Pluto is quite at home in retrograde. The Lord of the Underworld spends most of the each 12-month period, in this backwards formation. At the moment of Pluto's shifting retrograde and that square with Mercury, Medusa, the asteroid named for this beautiful goddess, this dark goddess of reclaiming power, reclaiming sight, shifted from the final degree, the karmic completion point of the astrological wheel, 29 degrees of Pisces, into the initiatory energies of zero Aries. As we continue to move through this month of May and come to the 9th of May's Aquarius crone moon and the Taurus super moon on the 16th, we are working with this Medusian energy in a very powerful way. You see, the month of May is a triple A month, by which we mean there is a solar stellar conjunction 3 times in this month. The first one is the day after the Taurus super moon, and it is with Medusa's third eye, the star, also sometimes called the demon star, Algol. And then, as the sun moves into Gemini, Alcyon and the sun conjunct, and then as we come to the Sagittarius blue full moon on the 31st of May, the sun will conjunct Aldebaran, the 3 A's. So, we're not going to talk about all 3 of these stellar dimensions today. Today, we're keeping it a bit tighter into Medusa, Algol, and the Taurus super moon. Medusa's energy. Let's feel here where we are going to go. Medusa's energy is that of site reclamation. The star Algol was once called a demon star because, from our earthly perspective, this binary star system would seem to disappear because it was eclipsing itself. So, from our vantage point, every couple of weeks it would just disappear. So, it was not a very reliable guide for navigating by the stars. As our consciousness, our capacity to visage grew, our telescopic abilities, right? We were able to see, oh, this is not a star that's disappearing. It is two stars, and they are interacting in such a way that they appear from our vantage point to be disappearing. The location of this star is in the constellation Perseus, and in specifics, it is in the location of Medusa's third eye, held in the hand, her decapitated head of Perseus. So what Algol actually represents is the hidden, the occulted sight of the feminine, that intuitive wisdom. When we look at Medusa, the allegory or the archetype of Medusa, this serpent-headed goddess, who in her story was said to have been a member of Pallas Athena's priestess temple, which was a virginal, as in abstaining from sex, not as in whole unto self, virginal temple. And the corruption of the word virgin had already begun when the most common mythoses of Medusa are being told in our his story. So Medusa, as part of this temple of Athena, was a very sensual being, full of creative joie de vivre. And abstaining from the quote unquote carnal pleasures was not her forte. And so she was often getting in trouble for cohabitations or letting her Kundalini energy mix and merge, if you will. So finally, after many warnings, it's said in most of the stories that Medusa laid with Neptune. Medusa laid with Neptune. Some stories say that Neptune raped her, other stories simply that it was a consensual sexual act. But this act occurred in the altar room of Athena's temple. Now, Athena had a thing for Neptune herself and was very upset. Like, not only was it in her altar room, it was with her boo, right? So she was not happy and cursed Medusa. She said, "You will be a full reflection." Medusa was said to have been a very beautiful, humanoid looking Gorgon. So she became the full expression of the Gorgon, the serpentine lower half, the feminine upper half, but also the head of snakes were given to her, and the piercing stare that would literally petrify. Now, these are the stories that come out of the Greco-Roman pantheon of Medusa and Athena. The older energy that Medusa represents is fully activated Kundalini. It is that primordial feminine energy. It is that creative joie de vivre that is the expression. So we can feel through her story, through the narrative that has been passed down for generations and generations now, we can feel the damnation by Athena, the victim blaming, the slut shaming that became such a common theme of this patriarchal era that we've been navigating. We can feel how scary, literally petrifying, turning to stone, the fully actualized creative force of the feminine was in the story of Medusa. What we are navigating in this current and Pluto's inward journey is revealing in its aspect of revealing that occulted wisdom, those secrets hidden, those deep guttural knowings as we come into the introspective journey. That knowing that we are all here, whether we're in a female body or a male body or a divine androgyne expression, to fully empower our Kundalini, to access that wisdom in our deeper chakras. Pluto retrograde, Medusa are both down and in. The Kundalini connects the down and in to the rising, right? The primordial feminine is considered serpentine for this reason. And when we connect to Medusa, or when we connect to Medusa's third eye, Algol, we are connecting to that oomph, that power, that creative essence, that primordial feminine, intuitive sight, rising up and connecting with our sight. It is a full Kundalini activation, if you will. So we find in this month of May, this beginning part of May, Medusa initiating us into this lineage at the 0 degree of Aries. When we get to the Aquarius crone moon on the 9th, Medusa will be at 2 degrees of Aries, coming into that yod that we talked about in the last update with Uranus and Sedna in Gemini, Medusa and Neptune pointing the finger of God at that all-seeing eye, Shapley. And what we're getting to play with in this current as we come into that crone, that wizened moon in Aquarius, which will actually itself be exactly trying to Venus, that magnetic resonance, and conjunct Sophia, Gnostic wisdom, serpentine energy also, is the receiving that is foundational and fundamental to our sightedness. The safety and security that is fundamental to our capacity to fully express our power, our innate power. First and foremost, what Medusa represents is the reclamation of power. True power, not power over, not the exertion of power, but fully embodied empowerment, empowerment. Whole unto self. Medusa would have felt right at home in a virginal temple before that word became corrupted, when it truly meant whole unto self. So here we are, Medusa on the crone moon, working with Neptune, who in the story was who she laid with. Isn't that fun? Coming into that yummy yumminess with Uranus and Sedna, who also was punished for who she chose to lay with in her Inuit story and became the queen of the underworld through it. All this rising up, this awakening to the innate power and the majesty of the feminine magi, the witch, the crone, crowned. As we come towards the Taurus Super New Moon, feel that. May also begins the supermoon cycle, but not for that reflective bright light of the full moon, for the introspective meeting of the sun and the moon that is the new moon. Super new moons really bring us in. They really bring us in. They give us access to the intuitive seed planting capacity of our beings. So Pluto turns retrograde, and then Medusa enters Aries, and we find the super lunations occurring in the new formations, in those dark moon times. As we come through the crone moon, into the darkening moon, into the black moon, and the new moon, to that 0 point where all that creative energy exists, expanded. On the day of the super new moon in Taurus, we find the sun, the moon, Algol, and Morgana, that elemental yumminess that Morgana is, queen of the Fae as she is, bringing us into the Chapel Perilous with Mercury along as well, helping to decode the information, if you will. Mercury's capacity to communicate and translate between all possible planes of existence, helping us to connect to that truth that it is all within us. The day after the supermoon, the 17th of May, is the day of the exact Algol Sol conjunction. This is a beautiful day for rituals of insight. The new moon is often a time for the planting of seeds. Perhaps in this earthly sign of Taurus, you can physically plant a seed that is an herb related to sight, like tulsi or basil, something in that family. Perhaps instead you are called to plant a crystal, a seed in the form of a crystal, something amethyst, something related to the third eye. Working with stones such as smoky citrine, golden healer that are very connected to the solar plexus, be powerful as well. On the day of the Taurus supermoon, we will also have an exact conjunction between Mars and Chiron. Chiron finishing out its cycle in Aries, getting ready for a June dip into Taurus, is wounds of abandonment. Chiron and Aries, those of us who have it, and all of us who've been running in this cycle of Chiron and Aries that's been going on for, I think, 2018 since, is navigating wounds around empowerment, wounds around abandonment, wounds around the I am. What am I? Who am I? What does it mean to say I am? What does it mean to embody I am? And will I be abandoned? Should I do so? When Mars, the ruler of Aries, meets in conjunction during this super new moon with Chiron, the heat of that meeting is likely to bring about quite the combustion. Now, if it's operating in shadow, that combustion could be an explosion outward of, you don't see me. It could be angry and fiery in that way. Running in harmony in the light expression of it, we can feel an empowered rising, an invitation to rise up from our root, from our sacral, from our solar plexus, rise up through our diaphragm and just sing, I am. Take it or leave it. This is the reclamation of power. You're not asking someone, please accept me. You're not saying, I need to be heard and I'm going to stomp all over you. You're simply seated in your power, seated in your power. And from that status, from that wholeness, rising up like the serpent of the Kundalini, rising up and allowing, I am. I am. Allowing the I am of all around you to be witnessed as well. Whole unto self. Releasing fears. Now, here's Medusa really wants to experience this. He wants us to experience this. The petrification, the turning to stone. The turning to stone. At the fully embodied creative potential of the feminine is not something that was simply laid down upon us, that exists only outside of us. It exists also within us. Most of us are running some form of wound of disempowerment, of fear of our own power. This reclamation is a witnessing of that fear and a releasing of that fear. On this Taurus Super New Moon, Medusa will be at 5 degrees of Aries, exactly sextile to Pluto's retrograde in Aquarius. Isn't that fun? Ooh. Venus will be at 27 degrees of Gemini, exactly trying to Hecate at 27 of Aquarius. Hecate, who will be sextile to Mars and Chiron in Aries, Venus, who will also be sextile to Mars and Chiron in Aries. This beautiful display of allowing space for the feminine voice within us all to rise up and be reclaimed. It's not about pulling down, it's about rising up. It's not down with the patriarchy, we need to pull all of it down. It's pulling away, like weeding from a garden, all of the toxic strands, all of the corruptive things that exist, that sprouted up in the last couple of few thousand years, weeding them out, allowing space, allowing space. Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini are both really connected. They're both air signs. It's about allowing space for all of us to grow, to flourish. So, yes, we weed out, and this is something we have been doing for the last 10, 15 years or so, weeding out the corruptive nature of power over to make space for empowerment of all and the allness of ourselves as well. That multidimensional, multifaceted, multi-beingness, multidimensional beingness of us all. To feel the wisdom of the feminine energies and how through union with those foundational, structural energies of the divine masculine, we find within ourselves a state of union, whole unto self. And then we can feel how the virginal priestess temples were also virginal priest temples, and they absolutely had sex in them as well. But the sex was not simply sex magic in a copulative form. The true sex magic was allowing the mating of the masculine within your being and the feminine within your being to exist. Allowing copulation within the being as a whole unto self. Let me feel here. On the 17th, when the solar Algol conjunction happens, we will also find Mercury coming into conjunction with Uranus and Sedna. On the Taurus Super Moon, the exactness of Uranus and Sedna's conjunction begins. It will continue on, waxing and waning until April of 2027, in fact. On the 17th, as the sun conjuncts Algol, Mercury joins them. And it's an exact conjunction between the messenger, the awakener, and that beautiful oceanic queen of the underworld and shamanic journeyer that connects us to the all of the universe. And of course, in conjunctly with the Shapley supercluster as well, and Neptune in that finger of God. We talked about some crystals. Citrine, ametrine is a good one for working with this energy. Actually, ametrine, oh my goodness. If you can find some ametrine and you're called to crystal working, crystal tuning your being, ametrine, the amethyst mixed with the citrine. Super 7 would also be great for this because it has both, and then it also has the hematite in it. Or a piece of amethyst, a piece of hematite, a piece of citrine, smoky citrine as well, because it has that smoky quartz in it. All of these stones are really good at helping us connect with our empowered sight, to reclaim our power, to feel whole in our solar plexus. And can you feel how I have the ametrine on the long chain, so it sits right there. The power of that, the majesty of that, the magnetic nature of that in its form. That arrow pointing down to my root chakra. Other ways to work with this energy would be, let's feel, meditative practice, but not like transcendental meditation where you're up and out, but deep meditative practice, embodied meditative practice, shaking, dancing, climbing hills, working with trees, sitting on rocks, working with the ocean. If you're in a place where you have access to the ocean, this would be an amazing energy to work with. Deep lakes, even rivers or streams, also very powerful during this experience. Because we have so much Taurus energy, so much earthly energy, that manifestational energy in this first couple of weeks of May in particular, working with the earth element and connecting to the primordial feminine of Mother Earth could be really helpful and powerful. Over in the Blue Flame community, I have just made a explorations of your multidimensional beingness, transmission, and frequency meditation available. You are invited to come over and check it out. I also have just relaunched Cosmic Light Drops, the cyclical newsletter. So come over to Circle and you can fill out the form and sign up to get those as well. We will have our new moon circle on the 16th, and we will be working with this Medusa and Algol energy during that, and really working with power reclamation as well. It is wisdom that we're talking about. It is deep knowing. It is our intuition. It is those gifts that we're really exploring as we move into this next cycle, this next part of the year, 2026, as we open up more and more to the truth of who and what we are. And as we open up together, it is with so much and many loves that I share these offerings and this update. May it serve, as always, in the always, from the dimensions of the all, beyond the beyond. So much loves. Thank you.